You ever wonder why Christianity is worshipped across different races differently and across different nations differently? So, in America, we all know that white people worship in church differently than the way black people worship in church. Black churches are more upbeat and outgoing, while white churches are more quiet and less energetic. So when you look at this not only has differences across race, but it also has differences across cultures and across different nations. Let me give you an example. In Scandinavia, where specifically Vikings dwelled and Norsemen dwelled, they worship Christianity differently than the way Europeans in Eastern Europe worship Christianity. So, for example, when you look at Orthodox Christians like the ones in Romania, those types of Christians, they do things completely differently than Scandinavian Christians do. Scandinavian Christians are much more secular than the ones in Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe, they're more about sticking to the Bible. No adultery, no sex before marriage, no prostitution allowed, all these things. But when you look in Northern Europe and the very secular parts of Europe, their Christianity is merged in secularism. And I'm going to explain why this is the case. This is the case because when you look at Vikings and you look at Viking religion, their religion was not as strict as Christianity. And when they conquered Christians, they did not get reconquered by the Christians whom they took the territory from. No, see, there's this narrative out there that Christians defeated the whole world. There's a narrative that the reason why Christianity is the number one religion in the world is because it just simply beat out all the other religions. But that's not true. Vikings actually defeated the Christians. The heathen army, when they came on the lands of places like Scotland, England, all these different lands, they actually conquered these lands. They even conquered Paris. You know, Ragnar Lothbrok and his offspring, his three sons and their offspring, they conquered basically all of Europe. And when you look at this, they did these things because their religion was a religion of war and a religion of conquest. So in Viking religion, when you died in war, this was seen as honorable. And I want to explain to you the reason why it's more secular is because when you look at Viking religion as opposed to Christian religion, it's much more strict on things. So in Viking territory, it was common for men to, pay for sex. And it was common for women of high status to also have sex servants. Like this was common in Viking religion. And when you look at it, when they conquested Christian lands and they came over to the Christian side of Europe, they didn't get reconquered by Europe. They simply assimilated into Christianity. And also, here's another thing, is that their version of Christianity was different than the other side of Europe. Because when you look at Viking Christianity, they had a hard time accepting Jesus as being a peaceful nomad. They had a strictly biased point of view towards warlords and towards warriors because of how they grew up. So when you look at when Vikings assimilated into Christian culture, they formed Jesus around their previous gods like Thor, all these different gods like Odin, Loki. They formulated their gods and took them in the form of Christian angels and Jesus Christ himself. So when Jesus Christ was integrated into their religion, they turned Jesus essentially into a warlord. And I'm not lying. You can look this up. They literally, in Viking culture, they turned Jesus into a warlord. they had trouble accepting him as a peaceful man. They didn't like that because in Viking culture, you were told that Valhalla was a place of honor, that if you died in war, you would go up to a Valhalla or ascend to Valhalla and have dinner with Odin, Thor, and all these other gods in their pantheon. So they didn't throw away their Viking religion. No, they immersed it and emerged it with Christianity. That's all they did. And you can look at it culturally, how Christianity developed in Northern Europe. Northern Europe is way more secular than Eastern Europe. Western Europe as well is also way more secular than Eastern Europe, because the world is mostly Christians, right? Well, the world isn't mostly Christians, but the highest religion is Christians, right? There's over 2 billion Christians in the world. So when you look at this, you just think automatically, hey, Christians won and Christians dominated the whole world. That's not true. Christians oftentimes got dominated. When you look at the religion of Islam, all that territory that is now Islamic used to be Christian territory. The Middle East used to be nothing but Christians. But now when Islam came upon the map, they conquested that whole Middle Eastern area and completely dominated and turned those people into Christians. And not only were they Christians, but they're also pagans. So when you look at this, I think we need to look at Christianity differently. When you look at it, Haitians worship Christianity differently than the way Americans worship. When you look at Haitian Christianity, it has a lot of voodoo practices immersed into it. It's because voodooism and a lot of those rituals are part of their culture. See, here's what you guys think what happens when a different religion comes on someone's doorstep and they accept it. You think that they completely throw out their previous religion and just accept the current religion and just throw everything out by the wayside where it's never to be seen again. But this is completely false. What they do is they merge their current religion with the religion that they're currently being accepted into and converting into. This is called metamorphism. When you simply change into something else, but you're not changing who you are, you're just changing the form of what you've become. This is not the case of complete change. It's not. It's not the case of complete change. Vikings did not throw away their religion. They simply merged it with Christianity and merged it with Jesus Christ. Instead of Jesus being the peaceful man, they made him into a warlord and into a man of conquest. That's why oftentimes in medieval sculpture, you'll see Jesus holding a sword and a shield. Where do you think that comes from? Where? And even when you look at Rome, Rome did not start with Christianity. Rome started with their own religion and Roman mythology and Roman paganism. They started with their own religion. However, when they adopted Christianity, which is currently known as Catholicism, which Catholicism has the highest group in the Christian domain. So when you look at Catholicism and Catholics, they're the highest number of population of the Christian group out of any Christian group. They're higher than Protestants, they're higher than Orthodox, they're higher than Pentecost, Baptists, Mormons, all of them. There's about 600 million Catholics in the world, while there's only about, I want to say, probably about 200 or 150 million Protestants in the world. Catholics dominate and overwhelm the Christian population by a large swath of people. And the thing is about the United States, we don't have a lot of Catholics here in the United States compared to Protestants. Why? Because our form of Christianity did not come from Rome. Our form of Christianity came from a different source. That's why we're not Catholics. But when you look at Hispanic countries, like all these different countries like Ecuador, Mexico, Honduras, Brazil, all these different places, where did they get their Christianity from? They got it from Spain. And where did Spain get their Christianity from? They got it from Rome. It's all, you can link it back to where it comes from. Where did America get our form of Christianity from? Well, when you look at it, the first settlers of the United States that came from Europe, most of them were Englishmen. Most of them came from England, not Spain. A lot of you think that Christopher Columbus, when he came down here, he came to the United States. Christopher Columbus actually never set foot in the United States. The America that he came to was Hispaniola, and Hispaniola back then is now known today as Haiti and the Dominican Republic. That's where Columbus set in, not America, not the United States. And that's why when you look at it, we do things differently. Rome and Catholicism, they see Mother Mary basically as a god, and the Pope, they also see him as a god. The Pope is literally a representation of Jesus Christ on earth in the Roman papacy and in the Catholic Church. That's why Mother Mary, and they have all these different saints that they worship. They bow down to them at the altar. They kiss the statue's feet. They do all these different rituals that's completely different from Protestant Christianity. There's so many branches that Christianity is worshipped under, and this has definitely changed my mind on how I view these things. It's basically a host. It's a host for different cultures to put their culture into it and just modernize it. Because let's be honest, a lot of cultures wouldn't survive in today's world because it's just too barbaric. And you have to modernize it and immerse it in a different form. And that's what they do. When they see the political benefit of it, they change their religion, they change their culture. When you look at it, the reason why Vikings committed and converted into Christianity is not because they thought Jesus was their Lord and Savior. They did it for political purposes. And I think this is what we need to understand about culture, our history, and how we worship in religion. That's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed yourself. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up button. And if you truly enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. It's completely free. And I'll be making content weekly. And if you have friends and family, make sure you hit the share button. You know you want to. That's going to be it for today's video. Peace.